But thank you so much for inviting me. I actually had like a lot of fun reflecting about more philosophical questions about what UX research is. And then there are some practical tips in there, of course. So I'm Nadia, and I currently manage the UX research team at Thinkific. If you haven't heard about Thinkific, it's a company based here in Canada, in Vancouver. We're remote, but the headquarters are here in Vancouver. And we are a platform that provides the opportunity for any expert or creator to create online digital products like online courses, online communities, and all the set of features or all the set that capabilities that are required to sell those, to do e-commerce with those. So another way to say that is, if you ever heard about Shopify, which is probably more common in our Canadian tech ecosystem, we tend to say like we are the Shopify but for digital products. So we enable experts and creators to sell digital expertise via digital products. So that is Thinkific, and I've been there for about the last 5 years. And I joined the company actually as the first UX researcher, and then my team has grown over time. So I think the first question, and I can see that this is a very quiet audience, so don't leave me hanging too much in here. I'll do my best to just speak. But obviously the very first question is, even if you use the reactions on the screen, why don't you raise a hand, put a heart, something about like, how would you answer? Do you have any experience conducting UX research before? Anything. Great, thank you, Annabelle. Kelly, good to know. That's great. It's okay. So it looks like some of you may have some experience, some of you have no experience at all. I often confuse the raise hand with the thumbs up, so I completely understand if that was mistaken. But if not, speak up. Great. So, as I was saying, I had fun putting this together, reflecting about what is it that I would like to talk about UX research. And I think in another opportunity we can go into like the very specific details of usability testing. If there is another opportunity, I can share some resources at the end about that too. But today I really wanted to say to frame it around what is it that we believe or have heard that UX research is, and how is that sometimes positioned as more of a vision versus what in practice truly usability research is. Some common misconceptions, a very general understanding on how is it done and who's doing it. And I think for this group it's really important to know that the who's doing it is not only usability UX researchers. In fact, UX researchers, dedicated UX researchers are, even though it's a very growing function in the tech industry, I'll show you some evidence that really highlights how there are these other people who conduct research as part of their jobs on a very regular basis. And guess who those are? Well, product designers, product managers, product marketers, right? So you should expect to, as part of your job, to be familiar and use this as a powerful tool on your belt. And then I really run quickly to some tools that I use in my practice with my team. And guess what? It's less about conducting the best usability test or conducting the best interview. And it's all about how can we make sure that we have a clear understanding of the assumptions that we're starting from. So in that sense, it's less about the perfect interview or the perfect usability test today, and more about let's make sure that we know what is it that we want to learn from whom and why. Okay, so I think that said, this one helped me out. Those who have conducted research, maybe you can tell me or write on the chat, why do we care about UX research? What are those common things that we hear why we should be conducting UX research? Anything. I'll take one liner and go from there. There are very common ones, like maybe as UX practitioners, what have you ever heard is like UX research help us with what? Dun, 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 dun. Am I not seeing the chat? I think I'm seeing the chat.
People have been putting stuff in the messages.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yes, I just saw it. Okay, it doesn't show the notification when I'm in presenter mode, so I was like, okay, I'll wait. All right, it says making sure assumptions are real. So we don't make assumptions on the best solution, building what the customer really actually needs. Love it. Identifying pain points you may not have thought of. Maybe to learn about pain points, product aligned to target user equal retention. Product should be solving a problem without the feedback. We may be assuming the problem and therefore creating a solution in a vacuum of projections. Amazing. So you nailed it. Common things that we hear about UX research is that we care about customer research because we care about building customer or user empathy, right? So it's all about, still under the umbrella of the UX practice, we represent the customer, we represent the user, and we care about their reality. You all say this one, so solving real problems, building products that matter, delivering customer value. So how do someone talk about retention if the product that I'm building is aligned with if the product that I'm building is aligned with a real problem, then, or a real need, or a delightful experience, then we're delivering customer value, and that translates into business outcomes like retention or growth, etc. We care about research also because as we go along the decision-making process, we want to inform decisions based on true data. And whenever I have a star or a quote marks and summaries, that I want to make a clarification on intuition. And I see your question, Jenny. What is the difference between market research and UX research? I thought doing research on product will be market research. That is a great question, actually. So as it says, market research is about understanding that the market that you're trying to serve. So we hear terms like, what is the total addressable market? What is the service addressable market? How does that market looks like for the product that we're trying to put out? So the difference between UX research is like UX research is really focused on the user and the people and the problems and their needs, and market is this product going to be used by what is the opportunity of this product in a market? Because I can solve a real problem for someone, for a market, for a very niche market of my family. For example, my family has a very specific need, and I can empathize with them, understand them, build a product that serves their needs. But if I really, in sense, if I'd really wanna understand also what is the opportunity of that product beyond. And so market research cares more about understanding, like what are the signals in the market that make my product viable or not, versus user research focuses on understanding the people and the user needs and the problems related to a specific customer. That said, though, these are very intertwined, and typically when we're launching products, we need to do both. And typically when we launch products, UX researchers are asked to do both of these things, or PMs sometimes are asked to do the segment of the market research, while designers are focused on the user research, for example. So it's a team sport. You will hear me say that. Hope that answers the question, Jenny.
Yes, thank you.
Great. UX research is related more to user behavior and building empathy. Yeah, these are great things that we hear. So we focus on the person, and then market is we focus on like the macro scale of the market. So all of these things are great because all of these things are about the vision of UX research, or the vision of UX. So they help us ground in values. And sometimes these are arguments for like buying within an organization. We really need to solve real problems. We need to create empathy with our users. That I wanted to say, like, that is kind of the vision and how it got created. Can I continue? There is this definition that I really like in practice from a very famous practitioner in UX research, Erica Hall. She has a great book you should all read. It's tiny book. I added at the end of the resources. It's called Just Enough Research. And Erica Hall defines UX research like this. UX research is the disciplined practice of learning about people in order to make better design decisions, reduce risk, and ensure products actually meet user needs. So actually, Envision is all about this, generating empathy, connecting with customers, solving real problems, and that is true, and that is beautiful. But when it translates to actually what we're doing on our day-to-day basis, what we're trying to do is make better decisions and reduce risk. Really is about that. So I like to use this kind of sentence. I have used it with my own team. It says, research in tech and in product development, as opposed to research in science to advance the knowledge of humanity, right, is a de-risking activity. So we are less perhaps interested in even though once we enter this space, it's so fascinating. We want to know everything about how someone does something, what is happening around them. I want to really better understand who else is participating of the activity that I'm interested in. It really opens our curiosity. And that is great. And that can help us advance knowledge, human knowledge in general too. But when we talk about research in tech and product development, like the practical framing is framing it as a de-risking activity, because otherwise I have run into excited PMs and designers that ask me these big ball, magic ball questions. What is the true about reality? And I'm like, help me understand what decision you will make if you had an answer to that, right? And so it is like we really have to ground ourselves in what is the decision that we're trying to make, and can we move the needle a little further? Can we start reducing uncertainty in the decisions by grounding them in the reality of a specific group of people? And when we say by gathering true data, really true data, it's all like as a pragmatist, there is no like an objective reality out there that I can start learning and identifying, even in the best scientific methods. We know that all that we have is models about like something that works right now in a specific context, and they evolve. So all we're doing is gathering evidence, focus on a specific group of people, not just data for data's sake. And this is really important for my PM friends here in the room, both quantitative and qualitative. There is a strong, and for anyone who also is more lean towards market research, there is a strong belief that quantitative, meaning anything that helps me make statements of truth about an entire population, like a survey, that this is the kind of things that we hear when it says 50% of the population prefers X or Y. 90% of the users of the product say they dislike this or Y. That is a quantitative assessment about the sizing of a problem. That is not more powerful than qualitatively understanding why someone is experiencing a problem or what is the reason behind a specific need. So we gather that all of those both are equally important towards this activity of de-risking a decision. And so, and when I say like de-risking a decision, so it's like, what kind of risks? Any thoughts? Like, what are the potential risks that we're running into, or what are the risks that we're trying to reduce by running UX research? Any ideas? Marketer didn't care about our product. Aha, precisely. Spending a lot of time building a tool that no one needs. Bingo. So obviously the first one is investment risks, right? So it's like, is this gonna cost a lot to build for nobody really caring about that? So that investment is not just cash money, that gets translated into well, everything at the end goes into spending dollars into development teams, that building things that nobody was going to use, or spending time, but also time to opportunities. Like, we didn't understand, for example, investing without UX research and building a solution that for the market was a need yesterday, or for the market there is already a competitor that it's so far beyond that maybe it is a known need, but has started to seeing a solution in the market already. So obviously investment is one kind of risk. Running UX research to help us prevent other kind of risk. Do no harm. So a lot of us care about that our products and the technology that we are creating does not generate negative outcomes for its users, right? And we can talk about that a little further. I mean, a lot of political, corporate, business-oriented decisions have an impact on this, but it does not take away the fact that UX practitioners, designers, PMs, and UX researchers can identify risk around a technology potentially creating negative outcomes for its users. And then the other risk that we want to prevent is losing track of that strategic alignment. And another thing that tends to happen with product teams is that the pressure to ship or to build something, a sentence that I kind of, I wish I had a tip jar for every time that I hear that there is this low-hanging fruit opportunity for us to build X or Y thing. But low-hanging fruit after low-hanging fruit, we collect a series of disconnected experiences that do not solve the ultimate goal or the strategy that we're after. For example, I think if it were really clear that we're after is helping experts create a business out of their knowledge, and if we're not serious about that vision, there is the low-hanging fruit of what if we support customer support teams that also want to train their internal teams, because it's low-hanging fruit. Those also want to create courses. And so research continues always feeding into this strategic alignment. And that's a really big risk. Speaking of the do no harm, because sometimes we believe that this is idealism, and as much as a pragmatic as I am, I actually brought this example because UX research has a true capacity to uncover risks, right? Even if the politics of corporate values push the product forward, we have the capacity to intervene. So I don't know if you all are familiar with this was leaked, the leak of Facebook in 2021, and how in the leak there was this kind of evidence that they knew that Instagram was creating negative effects for teenagers. And so they were running research, and they had anticipated that Instagram had the potential to harm teenagers in some areas. Obviously, this is like how the news presented it. The research that Meta later revealed, it was a little bit more than that. It was like, yes, we did run research, and we asked whether the use of Instagram had made certain things around their lives better, worse, that had no impact. And in so many dimensions, the users, in this case teenagers, were saying that it had made it better. For example, in terms of social companionship, in terms of loneliness, people like these teenagers were reporting that it had a positive effect. But there was this one item specifically for teenage girls that it was like, it is making body images issues worse. And so the research was there, the evidence was there. Did Meta push the product or prevent the product from going into the market? Obviously not. But we do have the opportunity to intervene, because then there are features that are released around a product with this knowledge that are like the restrict feature, for example. Teenagers have, or like any user of the Instagram accounts have the opportunity, like the possibility to restrict content that or users to reach out to them, other users to reach out to them, for example, for bullying, the time restriction kind of thing, the content policies that to remove a lot of graphic content related to self-harm or suicide, things like that. So it doesn't mean that it's a go, no go for the product in the market, But once this kind of evidence is on the table, someone may pay attention to it, and product can start creating cohesive decisions around it. Now, that takes me to two truths and a lie about UX research, which maybe my title is like actually not completely accurate, but I was just trying to make a nice sounding title, clickbait attempt, but in reality it's common misconceptions in UX research. And I wanted to highlight three in particular. One is that you will hear, maybe you have heard or you will experience this actually in your actual skin. It's like, I don't have time to do research. Actually, I already know enough. I understand the problem space enough. I know what we need to build. And so there is this common misconception that research slows down or is too costly. And misconceptions can come from both ends, actually. It can come from the people that are resistant to research because it takes too much time, it's too costly, it doesn't lead to quantifiable truths, etc. But it can also come from like those who want to promote research, like which is the other end of the spectrum. For example, we cannot move forward without uncovering the truth of the user. And then another common misconception is that UX research is just the opinion of people. So what could we say about research slowing us down or is too costly? Anybody has any idea of like, why is that a misconception? It's costly to not do research and design a product that no one cares about. Exactly, right? Like it always comes down to what we said at the beginning. This depends on the level of confidence and risk about the decision that needs to be made. So again, remember that I talked about at the beginning that UX research is about the risking decisions. So what level of confidence do I have in that decision that needs to be made? What are the assumptions that I'm departing from about that decision that needs to be made? And the reality is that it may be seen as research is slowing us down in the product build process, but we just have the opportunity to be wrong faster, even with zero development time, right? So I have the opportunity to go and build a prototype or validate a concept or an idea that that the engineers can very rapidly build, or that it can get engineering time, but I can invalidate that way before it gets to engineering time. And that this is completely true. This is not just a nice thing that it could happen. Like I've been in projects at Thinkific when this is 100% true. So we get the opportunity to validate assumptions or product directions way before it is one line of coding, and then we quickly know that is the wrong direction. So it's not about being wrong; it's about being wrong faster, and so it's not costly. Now, this can be true, as I said. Research can slow us down if on the other side we feel a little paralysis or a little too much tension and we demand comprehensive evidence for every decision, right? So if, again, it could fall from the other end too, especially for earlier career designers and sometimes PMs, there can be a form of analysis paralysis. If there is little evidence to start from. I actually would love to hear, like, later when we get into like more of a conversation, how did this week go for you? How did that conversation of discovering a problem space go for you? Did you realize that you were feeling uncertain, that you didn't really know a lot about this space, that you're departing from a lot of assumptions? There's nothing wrong with it. And also it doesn't mean that you cannot move forward until you uncover like a deeper truth about your problem space. All you need to know is put them on the table, be clear about those assumptions that you're starting from. And I am a pragmatist, and this is more on like the philosophy of science kind of situation, but there is no objective truth out there that we are supposed to learn before in order to move forward. Like all of this is context related. complex social cultural forms of human groups change over time. Even something that we believe is completely true today do not stand the trial of time. The fact that we believe for the longest time that we needed keyboards on phones, for example, physical keyboards on phones, like it was the strongest hold belief that you need to put a keyboard on a phone for it to function. And well, BlackBerry went to bankruptcy, right? So what is important here is that you preserve the awareness of, I don't need to know the entire truth before I move forward, but I do need to put on the table the assumptions that I'm departing from. And the last one is UX research is just the opinions of people. And this is kind of intentionally misleading. What do you all think? It is UX research just the opinions of people? The sad reality is that this can be an argument that goes against UX research because it's implemented like that. Because what I think I go and I need to do when I do UX research is ask the opinions of people, is tell me what you like, tell me what you need. And so this is a really big call, and we'll get into it a little bit in our how to ask better questions, is favor behaviors and live stories over opinions and preference. The reality is that human beings tend to be very agreeable with one another, as much as you may doubt that. But even if you're not agreeable, you're agreeable to come up with an answer to a question that is being asked. And so even if that is not your lived experience, even if you have really no recollection of something that is being asked about you, if I'll ask all of you, tell me about why do you like or dislike drinking tea in the morning? Like it has already so many built assumptions that I like tea, that I take it only in the morning, and a person will find an answer to that question. Well, because, right? And so opinions are dangerous in UX research, and you may fall into the trap of collecting opinions, but what you really want to go for is behaviors and life stories of people. Tell me what you do when you first wake up in the morning. It's a better question, for example. Okay, I'm gonna try to fly through this because I really want to get to maybe more practical tips. But thank you for giving me the opportunity to reflect on all of these things of UX research that after 2 decades of practice on this, I have come to realize are really important. So how is it done and who's doing it? Anyways, you know the answers to this is whether a product design framework looks like this. Maybe you've seen this one, the double diamond. First, we diverge into problem, converge into problem definition, diverge again into solutions, converge again into what we're going to deliver. Whether it looks like something like this, or whether it looks like something like this, we're running more UX sprints where we're clearly rapidly moving through empathizing, defining, ideating, prototyping, and testing. No matter what framework we're using to orient our design process and product building process, research is commonly a collection of activities that we pack in this word research. And it tends to refer to discovery, concept validation, usability tests, these systematic activities that help us reduce uncertainty, as we were saying. And although they're more typically conducted in the order of the double diamond framework, is at the beginning we run research to understand the problem, and then we go into solution. The reality is that research is peppered down throughout the entire process. So we run research to understand the problem, if that's what we identify we want or we need, but we also run research to validate the solution, right? So research is not just this one activity that happened at one specific point in the process. It's a series of activities that can happen throughout the entire process. So this is a survey that user interviews. I also linked to what user interviews is. Releases about every year, and then it has in 2023, I think this is the report from 2023. It asked about 1,000 participants, qualified participants, not only from user researchers, but for anyone. They have this role called people who do research as part of their jobs. And again, that's referring to designers, product marketers, product managers. What is the toolkit of methods that you use? And so obviously we know that depending on when we are in the in the product build cycle, what are my research goals and what kind of evidence I'm trying to gather, I will use a different method that better suits my need. And so obviously one of the most common ones is one-on-one interviews, usability tests, surveys, concept tests, competitive analysis, behavioral product analytics. There's a list of them. There's like a library of them, but you'll be surprised on how much you can learn with the first two. Good, well-conducted interviews and well-conducted usability tests. Is there any other method that how many of you have conducted one-on-one interviews with a user in your career? Amazing. What about usability test? Great. And if not, this is your week. You're about to get into it. What about any other methods? Any other methods that you've used as part of your research in product development lifecycle? You can put it on the chat if you've ever used other methods. Nice. Surveys. Google Forms, I imagine, to deploy a survey or a feedback form. Concept tests, literature reviews, really good, thank you. What a good old literature review, it's often overlooked. And sometimes, even though I am a UX researcher, I manage a team of researchers and I help escalate the practice of UX research at Finkefe. An answer to one of the PMs is like, have you read about common practices in the industry? Like, there's so much research that has already been done for common problems in our industry. For example, one of those common problems is that last week I was having a conversation with one of our PMs on the checkout experience and something around better practices for redeeming coupons or applying promotions, etc. And the designer wanted to deploy this very complicated comparative usability test. And through our conversation is, what do we know about good practices in the industry, right? And we can reduce it of these big magic ball questions that we at the beginning get excited about understanding, and deploy a simple usability test, for example, or conduct a literature review and move forward with that recommendation. So you'd be surprised that as much as I am a UX researcher, I'm not saying you have to go and do research for every absolute question that you have out there. So in most cases, the process of conducting research, most of you already know, is like very important. You need to start from a research plan, and that, by that I don't mean a long document. By that I mean you need to have clarity of like, what do you want to learn, from whom, and what are your starting assumptions. That can be a one-pager, and literally is a one-pager, I think, you need to know how are you going to find, or what is the process for recruiting the people with whom you want to conduct, the participants with whom you want to conduct research. So typical examples include, well, if I work for an organization, I'm going to go and work with current customers, or I'm going to go to one of the many services that offer panels right now for conducting usability testing or recruiting participants, for example, user interviews or respondents, or there are many others. I have to figure out budget. I need to be able to offer incentives. What kind of incentives am I going to offer in my recruitment? I'm going to go through my partners or through my customer support team. So maybe I don't need to offer incentives because I can actually find out people that are talking already about this problem, etc., etc. Then you go into conducting the research. So many times when we talk about UX research, we think about like sitting in the call with the participant or conducting a usability test. But as you can see here, that is just one step of the process. And then it comes all of the part of synthesizing, organizing your data, and analyzing your results. Now, nowadays, AI has a lot of capability and potential for helping us with this last part. I won't get to it throughout the presentation, but I'll send you some resources on how, for example, PMs and designers on my team, on the teams that I support, are using Notebook and LM. Are you familiar with Notebook LM? Juliet is basically the Gemini. It's a free product from Google, so it's a Gemini product. It uses the Gemini models, and it was created kind of to help people study or collect a series of resources and generate synthesis about that. We started using it for giving them the transcripts of interviews, raw transcripts of interviews, and creating a process with AI to help designers and PMs synthesize results faster. Super handy. So there are certain things that AI can help with, for sure. Now, as I have been saying, research is a team sport, but before I get into this, do we have to finish at like 10 a.m. sharp? Is that our timeline, Juliet?
I feel like some squads, they have their meeting right after. We will be recording this. So for I feel like the folks that want to stay a little bit longer, they could. And for others, we will pass the recording.
Okay, perfect. We'll wrap up in 10 minutes, but I am mindful that we have 3 only left. And then for those of you who want to stay, we can answer more questions. So, same report from before, and this is for you to know. If you TLDR from this little image here, the dark green, I hope that no one is color deficient here at this moment, but the dark green dots on the screen is those that in the report in this particular survey identify themselves as people who do research as part of their jobs. This is the distribution of how teams look like for those who conduct research in any organization. And look how much of that is non-dedicated UX researchers, because it will fall on your plate. It will. Even if there are dedicated researchers in your organizations, like at Thinkific, the amount of research that the designers and PMs conduct is not insignificant, but also the amount of power that comes with that is also not insignificant. Okay, so the last 10 minutes is I cannot give you like a deep dive on every absolute known method out there. There is other better resources where to go for there, but I did wanted to collect some superpower tools that we use at Thinkific or that I have learned to use in my practice, and that it is not actually what you think it is, because it's not about how to better do a usability test. Is how we make sure that we are all aligned in what is the knowledge that we're starting from, and that what is it truly that we want to learn or need to learn by conducting UX research. So we run this every single time, or like at least every time it is a big risk decision, or there's a lot of voices in the room with different opinions, we run something that is called an assumption slam. Sorry, I'm like a little dry. It looks very simple. It looks like this. Oh, this is tiny in my screen, but we have a mirror board where we come together, and the purpose is that because we invite PMs, we invite product architects, we invite product designers, we invite UX researchers, we invite a director of a specific area. Also because many times a lot of projects get derailed into specific direction because a strong voice has a strong opinion. And sometimes all they want is to be heard, to make sure that they have expressed what they need, to make sure that they have expressed what they know. And then with that confidence to let the team take off. And so we run this assumption slam that looks like as simple as a sticky activity that is, what do we know? And in the what do we know, I always ask our participants to put down, one thing is a certainty, like I know something because it is, I have confidence in it, versus I believe. So we start and we make those very distinctive. I know, I believe. What do we want to know? But what do we want to know not only because it's an interesting, because if you don't attach the what decision will that help drive or move forward, I have done that before. And then what do we want to know becomes this big blue sky thinking about everything that is possible under the sky. And I'm like, yeah, but what if we understand why people don't engage on online communities, or why people are afraid of speaking aloud on online meetings? Like, those are interesting questions, but like, what decisions are really helping me those drive? Sometimes those big questions can be broken down into smaller, more concrete questions. And who do you want to know this from is really important, because as I have said, is sometimes it's my customers, but it's like, no, it could be a specific set of users in a specific moment of the journey with Thinkific, or it could be a specific set of users that have never signed up for Thinkific, for example. So we also need to be clear what is the group that we're interested in learning that from. Okay, that is the assumption slam. Super powerful. Cannot emphasize enough how useful this is. The other one, I had another one that is like problem statement and hypothesis statements. I'm gonna skip that one. And it's like, this is just a really like quick rundown on how to ask better questions, how to better connect with users and avoid the most common trap, which is confirmation bias. Thank you all that are dropping off. I understand. So confirmation bias. Sometimes when we run UX research, name it one-on-one interviews, or even usability tests in the tasks that we design, we fall into the trap of trying to lead our user to confirm that what we believe is true for them too. And so there are certain ways that we can avoid that. How to ask better questions. Oh, I actually have a little video here. It is 3 seconds. I'm gonna play it because it's fun. This is from an actual usability test that we run at Thinkific, and I just got so well captured with this particular participant. Remember what we talked at the beginning. Preference, perceptions, opinions can be talked about, and people are really agreeable, and they try to give you a good answer, and they try to have an answer for you, even if that's not true in their experience. Behaviors, you can always observe them. So what I have here is like a 30-second clip of a very agreeable participant that talks positively about a product, when in the reality, when you look at the data, another reason why AI cannot fully replace us in our interpretation right now, she's completely annoyed. She's completely annoyed with everything that she has to do. So let's take a look at that one, because it's really fun. Let me just share this tab instead. And hold on, let me just, how do I play?
So it would be.
Can you hear her?
Maybe.
Yes.
And oh my god. Okay, I hope that's it. Oh my god. Okay. It's a social influencer and just me all the time. Okay. Okay. Finished. So now we can continue with this. So it would be.
I hope that you picked up on the cues, because they're so obvious. She's a very smiley person. She's like, everything is great, da, 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 da. But here the amount of annoyance that is in like, oh my god, is this? I hope that this is solved, right? Like, that's what we're looking for. That was a very exciting usability test. Okay, so that was my really little short of evidence of behaviors. Observed behaviors are much more powerful than preference, opinions, or how people talk about a certain thing. Let's run through this in the next 2 minutes. Avoid yes or no questions. You probably have heard about this one. So, do people get an aha moment from the AI generating landing pages that we created? I want to know that. I want to know that for activation metrics in our product is like, this moment is really important. When we generate something with AI for them, we want to see them shine. We want to see them like think, wow, this is so exciting, Thinkific. So when we go to concept validation, we don't ask them, are you excited about this? This was an aha moment for you. We ask them, how would you describe this result? Is this aligned with what you were expected, right? And we have to be willing to take a no as an answer. Avoid leading questions. You want to know at Thinkific, will they continue editing these landing pages that we have generated for them? Don't ask, would you go and edit this landing page? That is called a leading question. You ask, what would you like to do next? And then observe and be really open to feel uncomfortable if they don't go in the direction that they want to go. About asking what it cannot be accurately recalled. So you want to know, what is the first thing that new users that come to Thinkific really want to create on their account? Or what was the very first thing that they did the other day about the coupons? Someone asked me, what is the first thing that people do to redeem coupons? And I recall buying these shoes online on a promo and using a coupon, and I told them I have absolutely no idea how I applied the coupon. I can't recall that. It just happened. It worked. So don't ask me to recall that from memory. We have other ways to ask those kind of questions. It's like, what was the first thing you did when you logged into Thinkific? It's like, well, let's create a story. Let's put the user in the mindset of what was happening around the time when they were doing that activity. What brought you to Thinkific? Tell me a story. Tell me, what were you doing that day, that week? What were you looking when you first got started? At least and that helped us start framing at least what was happening as a story, not just as an action. What did you do? The next one is avoid asking too much at once. Again, fall in love with asking stories that build up upon question after question, instead of asking, can you tell me about your audience, if there are different segments to that audience, and how the different marketing approaches you have for them. Is like, that is a lot to think about. Let's start building on what they're telling us. Tell me about your audience. And we wait and we hear the answer, and we use what they're telling us to say, it sounds like you use lead magnets, or it sounds like you really use your email marketing strategy. Are you sending all of those emails to everyone under your mailing list? And then we hear, no, actually, I separate them into groups. And so we start putting the story together. And the last one I have here is avoid using jargon. We are so in love how we talk in tech about our own products. And so internally, we love using things like lead magnets is one that I just use, because we believe that is what our users need, but it's just common language that we internally in the organization have agreed to use, or it's like common language in the industry. It doesn't mean that is our users' language. And so don't ask, can you tell me about how you use lead magnets? Don't assume that they know what any of those concepts or words that you use in your organization are really how they speak. You need to find ways to ask those questions around. I really flew through that one. And I think we should stop here and maybe have a few minutes for questions, if there are any that I can answer for you at this time. But there's so many more directions where we could go when we talk about UX research. So for now, let's leave it there. That is it. Let me jump to thank you. Let's take any questions. Did I use 30 minutes? I think that I didn't. I think that you gave me less than 30 minutes.
I gave you less than 30 minutes. That's usually what happened. Yes, Carolina. I'm quite curious on how to analyzing these findings, how to break it down.
Amazing question. Yes. Similar to how there are different techniques for how to conduct the different methods, before we go into actually conducting the user interview, we have to have a plan on what are we going to do with the data that we gather. So that was the last stage of the process that I show you. You would always be doing this with any kind of research, but it doesn't mean that you're thinking about it only at the end. Like from the very beginning, you're thinking, once I have this data, what am I going to do with it? How am I going to analyze it? And so there are two things that are very important, and that's, let me go back to that slide. And is, if I go back, I hit the other one that had an answer to that question. Where was it? Here. If I go to this one, it doesn't let me go back. Oh, I think it's here. Here. The first thing that you need actually, Carolina, to answer, to synthesize or filter down as you're referring to these results is your research plan. You need to anchor yourself on what was your objective, what do we want to learn, and from whom, right? And so suddenly you had a half an hour conversation with a user, everything was kind of leading you to synthesizing those results. So you ask the right questions towards your research goals, and now you have this interview. You have different ways. On Thinkific, maybe someone was taking notes on specific areas of the interview that we care, and then we just use those interviews and compare across our participants. Let's say that I care about what was the expectation of someone who signed up to Thinkific? What are the expectations of people when they sign up to Thinkific? And so when I hear those in the interview, maybe someone is taking notes, and when we go through that section of the interview, we have a section in the note-taking expectations. And so then we put together those on a Miro board, for example, or on an Excel spreadsheet, and we look at like what are themes appearing here. Another way to do that with usability testing is a lot faster, actually, because with usability tests, you have to have a success criteria. It's like you give people tasks, and are people successful, are completing this task or not? And if they're not successful or completing this task, what is happening? Where did they get lost? So you have already a plan of how you're gonna look at the data. Let's say that you give a person a task to go and redeem a coupon to apply a discount, and suddenly they got lost. They didn't find where to apply the coupon, or they didn't find where to actually redeem it. So in your data, you go and like with that question in mind, you can analyze, well, not all of my participants were successful or completing the task. And that's how you start filtering down the results. Now, I told you about notebook LMs. So many of the PMs and designers in my teams are using notebook LM these days. It's useful when you have more longer interview data. That is like semi-structured interview data, that you're not just asking robotic questions one after the other one. But I also encourage, like the plan that I created for them is not only give to the AI the interview data, like the transcript, also tell to the AI what were your research goals. So it's back to the very beginning, is what was it that I wanted to learn? You have to be very clear in what was it that you wanted to learn. And once we give them those goals, we ask, okay, give me a highlight of interview by interview. We don't give them all 5 interviews or 10 interviews and say, give me a summary. Interview by interview, give me a highlight. And then I, as a human, still have a lot to say about, yes, that was true for that interview, second interview. And then I ask them, okay, now having all those interviews by interview, what are common themes on each of those interviews for across those interviews? So what we're doing is reducing the amount of data that we have from a single interview into a summary per interview, and then finding common themes across all of my participants. And that is true before AI of how research synthesis works. You have a lot of data from an interview or from a usability test. You reduce it to what is important on each interview, and then you find common themes across all of the participants. Ultimately, that's kind of high level, the process. But I don't know if you're asking, is there anything in particular that you want to know more about the synthesis process, Carolina?
Hi, is my mic working?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I'm just curious. I always like to ask people how they go about looking at their data, because sometimes people have different processes, or they like to synthesize it in a specific way, and it comes a little natural to me, but I feel like I still need to figure out my process. But I usually do like a thematic analysis. I really like that. I like put it on Post-its. Quotes and notes that I gather from each participant, and then do it visually, I guess.
Yes.
But I find it really interesting, and I guess it also depends on the study that you're doing. So I always like to see how people think about it.
Okay, now I understand better where you're coming from. Okay, thematic analysis really is kind of the umbrella of how synthesis is done in any qualitative research. So it's not that there are other methods out there that you're missing out. And like, even I come from a background in academia, and when we do qualitative research in academia, even though we may be calling it a cluster analysis or something different, what we're doing is the same. It's thematic analysis. Is where we are identifying in what people are saying common themes, and we label those very in a simplified way, and then we find how those common themes apply across the board. I think if we used to have this really exciting process, those are pieces of art. I'll find a picture and send it your way. We used to do this, we had a process with Zapier where, like, from all those notes that we were taking, we would import those notes into Miro on a sticky notes, and then we will call them like sorting parties, thematic analysis parties, and it's like we will invite the designer, the PM. That is also really important. That is not just one person in the synthesis and analysis moment. We will invite the designers and the PMs and everyone. We start clustering things and themes that were appearing in the data. And then we will have these beautiful boards of themes and things that were appearing. We will make sure that for it to come into a report, it will have to have 3 different voices. So it was not just something that one participant was saying. We will try to make sure that it were at least 3 different participants were saying something around that. So it was very thorough, but as you can imagine, that was very time consuming. So we still do this, but only for very strategic, big problem-based questions. For the rest, for usability testing, for small and more specific problem areas, that is likely what designers and PMs are gonna run into more often. Like quicker thematic analysis using spreadsheets or a Miro board is great. That is the way to go. Jenny is asking a question about, like, UX does user research in the market to see if a product is viable or not, and also gives opinions on design of the web page or app, user friendly or not. That's a great question. Yeah, Jenny, can you tell me what is your role?
Maybe she left already because she has the squad meeting, but she is a UX writer. Oh no, you're Jenny C. Sorry, Jenny. There are so many Jennys. Thank you, Jenny.
You're a developer. Okay, so I understand where you're coming from. Yeah, typically, as I said, this is a team sport. So it's not that it's the UX practice, but the UX practice and that tasks tend to fall often on product marketers, product managers, and user experience designers. I thought it was product managers who usually do research on users and product. Wow, that's great. I mean, it's great that you think that. It's interesting to know this. What have we heard? What are these conceptions that we come into the industry? As I mentioned in the slide of who are really who do research, it is expected eventually that as part of their jobs, everyone in UX, product managers, UX designers, and obviously UX dedicated researchers will be conducting research in one way or another. It depends on the company's UX maturity. Yeah, sometimes it's not your role. It's like you have to wear. We all wear multiple hats. You all have heard this expression, right? And so it's like my company only has a PM and a designer. Well, often those two would be the ones conducting UX research. Or my company only truly has a PM. Well, often that person will be the one conducting research. But it is not that it is only a single person or individual role responsibility. And when there are multiple resources, like when the companies start scaling and we have both PMs and designers, the reality is like the best alternative is that both of them participate in the user research process. Because what user research is doing is empowering people with the ability to make better decisions. Who wants that? Everyone. And so if that is only falls on the table of the UX designer, then it becomes like trying to convince the PM. If it only falls on the table of the PM, then UX feels like they have to convince them. And so usually it's done in tandem, like a true collaborative effort. At the best PM, the best pods that I work at with Thinkific, do this very collaboratively. Both PMs and designers attend the interviews, both designers and PMs conduct the synthesis sessions, etc., etc.
I don't know, but I have just one more question, and it's what about timelines? And again, I feel like for right now, we're asking the tech squads to do a lot in a really crunch time. And again, the tech squads this is not what they do for works. It's not that they have 40 hours a week to do this. Right. So how do we approach or something like this? I feel like that's the hardest part when, I mean, all the things that you're mentioning, yes, and this is what you go and do for work. So what do we do when we don't have that time?
Amazing. I love the question. I love that question because it goes back to the question of like, this will just slow us down. I had another set of slides there that I'll at the end remove, but it's like lean UX. Like lean UX research is possible and it's powerful. So it is a practice that requires a bit of like getting comfortable with, but it kind of assumes that we're not departing from conducting deep problem-based research and then conducting deep usability testing. And it's like, it just is a matter of like, let's make sure that we put on the table what are our assumptions right now, even if it is assumptions, even if it is like, we have no clue if this is true or not, but this is the assumptions that we're departing from. From there, what we're going to create is a very robust hypothesis. Let me tell you one. At Thinkific, we had a project. At Thinkific, we had a project that is we're going to create this other product for a different audience. Like we identified that there was this audit audience, that it was not those super experts, academies, people that are want to sell their expertise, but more like influencers, social media creators that as part of what they do, they're selling tutorials on makeup. They're selling tutorials on things that they have learned through their life. They're like sharing little bits and pieces of knowledge that they have, even if they don't consider themselves experts. So this is not the target audience of Thinkific, but we thought, what if we create a product for them? And so there were so many assumptions about that audience because we didn't know them, right? Like that hasn't been the target audience of Thinkific. So instead of, we were on a tight timeline and the business said like, you have some budget, you have some time, but basically it's like, prove it or disprove it. Like go and do it and take it as an experiment. So we didn't have the timeline to go and run discovery. That's how I'd have done it, right? Let's go find out all about them, learn about all their lives, what are the problems, what are the goals, all of that. So what we did is we started with Lean UX. You start with a very strong hypothesis. Hypotheses like, we believe, I have a statement in the slides, and I'll share the slides with you so you can share them. We believe that, for example, the creators. We believe that creators do not need a website where to sell their products. They're more likely to use a link in bio solution. And we believe this was my favorite. We believe that creators are willing to reuse content they post on social media to package it and sell it, for example, as a tutorial product on a link in bio store. Did we have enough proof to believe that or not? Not at all. It was just a hypothesis. But then what happened? We created a prototype. We knew that it was just a hypothesis, that it was just an assumption. And when we went and tested, we were learning both about the problem space and the solution at the same time. So Lean UX, it's a great method for this. But the one thing that it requires is that you and your team are very honest that you're departing from assumptions. And that when you go and test your product, you're going to learn both about the problem and the solution at the same time. Does that make sense? Guess what?
Yes.
They did not want to reuse content. It was a big no. And that was a stronger hypothesis because we saw it. We saw that people creating tutorials on their stories is like, oh, they just want to put this as a product and sell it. No, not at all. They do not want that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, definitely. Because I feel like this is exactly what is happening between this week and next week. And again, it's like really compressed time. Mm-hmm. And it's, again, confusing because, yeah, like you were saying, we would like more time, but we just don't have it. This is great. I don't know if we have another question. I mean, rerun. I feel like, every cohort, I think about the same, and I should do it for next one. these meetings should be 90 minutes because these happen every single time. And I was thinking, oh, I can do it faster. I shouldn't do faster because, no. Anyway, any other questions? We don't have that many people left. Anything else? No. Nadia, thank you so. Oh my goodness, thank you. I was just going to message you, but thank you so much for coming, and a lot of good knowledge for people and tips for them to take this week. Yeah, if you don't mind to share your slide deck, I can add it in today's summary and notes, and I will be sharing this video with everybody so you can rewatch it if that helps.
And I'll send in. I haven't put together, but like there's so many resources out there. Now that I know that you're going into usability, I'll try to find. Like I also have another presentation that I did for usability testing, like for my team. I can share that too. But there's so many resources out there, and yeah, I mean.
They're going to be doing more usability testing, if I remember well, maybe week 9 or week 10 after they start like kind of into the spring.
It's more of a concept validation this week, but they're
like we would like it to do it before, but again, there is not enough time for this. But as an example, as what are the things that they would like to improve after release. So yeah. This is it. Thank you so much. I hope that you have fun.
I really did. Also, I haven't did this for a while. It's like it's time to go and tell a story about things that I care. Thank you for inviting me.
Love you so much. It's so much good stuff. Thank you, everybody. And our next squad meeting will be in 2 weeks. And we have 2 guest speakers in the air to see which ones, but we will have something coming. So we'll share that.
How do you pack all of that in an hour? It is impressive.
Yeah. I know it's not possible. I should stop. Just 90 minutes instead. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a great Sunday. Great squad meeting. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Good luck. You want me to stay? Should we start the recording?
Oh, I know. Hola. Gracias. Okay, ya.